Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network, where curiosity meets conversation. Get enlightened and have fun. Share the experience with friends, family, and anyone ready for thought-provoking dialogue. You can watch our shows on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, or connect with us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts are also available on Libsyn, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other major platforms. Be sure to visit our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, upcoming shows, and guest scheduling. And to our listeners around the cosmos, welcome. We're glad you're here. Subscribe, follow, and join the community.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. This is Conscious Radio Network's The Seance Podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click like, subscribe, comment, and also don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, we're joined by Talor Stewart, architect and founder of Conscious Home Design Incorporated. His book, Conscious Home Design, became a #1 bestseller in 7 countries. Talor helps homeowners, designers, and communities create space with intention and purpose. He trains other architects in his conscious home design methodology to elevate the impact they bring to the people they serve. Let's welcome to the show, Talor Stewart.
Yes, Paul.
How you doing today?
That's fun. The canned laughter. That's beautiful. Love it.
Got to throw the audience in there, right?
Yes,
so you never know how many people are actually going to be listening. Be like,
sure,
a lot.
Sure.
It's always
right.
archived, so people can always go back.
That's right. No, we're riding the trend here. That's right.
Yep.
We're right. Podcast rising. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes, brother.
Yeah. How long? Being an architect, how did this consciousness and this approach first? How did this first start?
Mm-hmm. We're talking origin stories here. That's really getting into the nitty gritty. I'd love to share that with you and with listeners. I just would like to start by offering the audience a promise, because sometimes people are thinking, an architect, okay, that's interesting, but I don't have any plans to hire an architect. Is this conversation really going to be relevant to me? And so I like to let people know that I've created, just because you're not going to hire a lawyer or a doctor doesn't mean that you can't learn something from having a conversation with them. And I have really come up realizing that the vast majority of people are going to work with the spaces they already have rather than custom design and build their own home. I've worked very hard to distill a few very key points that really move the needle in terms of our personal happiness and satisfaction, and help people take action in tiny ways within the walls they already have. So even if you're not planning to build a new home, even if you're just renting somewhere, you just have an apartment or something, I'm going to share some things that people can do to really get a boost out of the space they have, like zero budget kind of things that they can do. So that really move the needle. Just want to let people know they're in the right place, and I promise I'm going to give everyone some really good value. And so me personally, how did I get into this? It was always there. As a young man, I was in my early 20s. I had just sold my first company. I was interested in drumming and dancing, inspired by the West African traditions. And I had a drum shop, about 2,000 square feet, little cottage industry, building these hand drums. And I traveled around and did shows and festivals and fairs and things. And I also sold out of the shop, but I also had about 65 wholesale accounts all over the Northeast, even Sam Ash music stores that carried my drums for a while. And founded that company. But I knew I wanted something more. I love drumming and dancing. I used to play for dance classes, and I was very passionate about it. But I didn't want it to be the foundation of my entire life. I knew that I wanted something more. So it can be a cornerstone, but I don't want it to be the whole thing. So I sold the company, and I went on this big walkabout for about 2 years. I just traveled and adventured and explored, and was just to give myself time to be like, what's next? And one day, just like this light bulb went off, and it was like, oh, of course, I'm going to be an architect. How is it that never came up to me before. All growing up, I used to sketch on graph paper and design things, and I was always building structures in the backyard as a kid. And people had always had suggested, well, you're so good at drawing, why don't you be an artist? Or, hey, you're going to be a carpenter. Or I excelled in woodshop class in junior high school and high school. And they said, well, you're going to be a woodworker or a cabinet maker or something. But no one ever said the word architect. So when it hit, it was like a light bulb moment for me. And I was like, wow, of course. It's always been there. I just never saw it before. So at 25 years old, I went back to school and got my bona fides. And here I am, licensed best-selling author and serving people coast to coast.
Wow. Now, like you said, you don't have to own your own home in order to take from something from what you're going to be talking about on the show today. And I think I brought this up. There's so many discussions out there about Feng Shui and space and creating energy and moving energy within your space. What is different between your method and Feng Shui?
Great. That's a very poignant question, Paul, because the name of my book and the name of my business is Conscious Home Design. And people raise an eyebrow and they think about that. They go, oh, that sounds interesting. But then they're like going, but what does that actually mean? What is conscious home design? It's interesting, but it's not very specific. And so their mind tends to either go towards some sort of eco-friendly alternative construction, straw bale, or some sort of natural building, or eco-friendly design, or they're thinking maybe it's some sort of feng shui or some other sort of system of design and layout based on whatever mystical things that the ancients came up with that have been lost over the centuries that we can't really ground in science very well. And I look at those things and I say, okay, that's fine. At best, there's something there, but I can't really see exactly what it's. So it looks more like tradition than science. And not that's bad. But I wanted to root decisions in science rather than preference or tradition or style, aesthetics, because a lot of architecture is based on style. And so conscious home design, as I define it, really it's not any kind of style. It's not any of those things that I mentioned before. It's really about understanding the people who are going to be using the space and then making sure that it's suited to their endeavors and their activities and their goals, right? And so it works whether your house is large or small, cottage or castle, whether it is a modern home, mid-century home, or a traditional classic home, any kind of style. And it doesn't negate ancient traditions. It totally is compatible with Feng Shui. If you want to lay out your home and say, this is where the family goes, and this is where the travel goes, and the different things, this is the metal portion of the home, and this is the wood portion of the home. If you want to follow those paths, you certainly can. And you can also do conscious home design. They don't cancel each other out. It's yes and. So conscious home design is universal, and it works no matter where you are in the world or what your home preference looks like, because it really is rooted in what we know from the big data tells us that human beings universally are happier, healthier, live longer when they do these things. And so that's what it's about. It's about grounding things in really trying to bring architecture into the 21st century with this, because we've learned so much, Paul, about the science of human excellence and human potential and possibility. But our architecture, we're still designing homes the way we did in the 1900s. We've learned a lot from technology. We have new building materials, new glues and products and things to use to construct the home. And we have smart homes. We have technology like our thermostat is connected to our cell phone. So when we're driving home from work, the house knows, hey, they're coming home, warm it up or cool it off. So we've made technological advancements, but we haven't, we're still giving everyone, hey, 3 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, a bathroom. The program of the home hasn't changed. And it really needs to evolve, because we know so much more about what makes people actually happy that the home, and since we spend so much time in our homes, it makes sense to adapt them so that they actually have spaces that are functional for the way we live today and what we know to, like I said before, to help us reach our potential.
Yeah. And that segues into my next question is, what does the research say truly makes people happier as we get older?
Yeah. So it took me 20 years to write my book, Paul. I knew I was going to write a book even from my college days, but it wasn't until 2019, and after 20 years of practice of being in my industry, was I able to gel everything into a cohesive, short message that said, this is what's true, and this is what's applicable for all people. Everyone can learn from this, whether they hire an architect or not. And in the research process for my book, I came across the Harvard study of adult happiness, which is still going on today, but it was started in 1938. So here we are 80 something years later.
Yeah.
And what happened was they started with a couple of thousand people, and they did a full assessment and said, hey, who are you? What's your health? What's your background? Do you come from money? Do you come from poverty? What's your emotional state? A full snapshot each of all these thousands of people. And then they tracked them for their whole lives. And they periodically would check in with them and get an update and then compare and see how things were going.
Yeah.
And so now all the original participants have since passed on after 80 something years, because they were all over 18 when they began this study. And so now they're on to second and third generations. But what they found is that regardless of people's career success or failure, business ups and downs and challenges, health situations, whether they lived in a big home or a small home, none of those things mattered. They found that they matter, but they found that the single biggest predictor of people's life expectancy and how happy they were was the quality of their relationships and the connections.
Yeah.
It makes sense to us, right? We all intuitively know that, oh, of course, yes, I know. I do everything I do for my family. Oh, my friends and family are the most important thing in my life. Everyone says this and everyone knows this. But it's really nice to have data, to have the math prove it for us, because now we can feel justified in prioritizing it. It's no longer becomes a wish list item, and it now says, oh no, this actually, it's not just me that's like that, or a lot that are like that. This is the truth. This is fundamental for humans.
Yeah.
And so once we have that sort of justification to what we intuitively know, now it makes it easier for us to actually prioritize it in our action steps and say, how can we actually intentionally go after this to reap the benefits?
Yeah. Oof. What kind of relationships matter most for our well-being, and how does that connect to the way we design our homes?
Nice. That's another great question. I love the specificity that you bring with that. The Harvard study was very clear that relationship was not limited to a partnership, like a romantic relationship, a spouse. So if you happen to be single, you don't have to worry. You can still live a long, happy life, a rich, fulfilling life. Relationships are all of our relationships. And so when I came across this information, I was like, whoa, stop the presses. Book is not ready to go out yet, right? If this is the single biggest predictor of our life expectancy and our happiness, and the highest aim of architecture is to facilitate people's happiness, right? We want people to live happily ever after.
Yeah.
We even wrote it our forefathers wrote it into the Declaration of Independence, right? The life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are fundamental to all men, to all humans, right? It's that essential. We recognize that. And so that's the aim of architecture. The highest aim of architecture is to help facilitate people's happiness. And I paused. I said, okay, I need to research this more. And so I came across the Greeks. They have 7 different words for love based on the types of love that they come up with, whether it's love between a parent and a child, or 2 friends, or lovers and spouses, or between someone and their community. So we have all these different loves: agape, filial, eros, storge, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But that was just scratching the surface. I wanted to keep going and exploring that. And what I found is that all the diverse relationships that we have, they're pretty much going to fall into one of 3 categories, and that's giving, receiving, and reciprocal. So examples of a giving relationship. That's one where we are the primary giver. And so that's going to be relationships that we have with our children that we're raising or teaching, anyone that we're coaching or mentoring, regardless of their age. And it's even going to extend to include plants and animals and pets. Whether you have a pet of your own or you put a bird feeder outside, that's a giving relationship.
Yeah.
We all say, hey, I receive more than I give. You hear people say this all the time. And that's true. There's a universal sort of metaphysical law of reciprocity, and there's always a give and take with all of our relationships. You can't help it. It's just it's the way the universe is set up.
Yeah.
But at the face value, it's a giving relationship. You're the one who's showing up first with an offering. You're showing up to give in those types of relationships. So then we also have our reciprocal relationships like you and I are having right now. And this is relationships that we're going to have with our peers, with our friends, colleagues, coworkers, with our spouses, people we're hanging out with. There's a different kind of energy there. Like, I don't have to be a role model and put on my best behavior or put on some sort of facade the way I would have to if I was teaching a child and have to adopt a different kind of behavior. I can be more natural. There's a give and take. We can just talk from the heart. It's a slightly different quality of relationship. And then we have our receiving relationships, and those are the ones where we are the primary beneficiary of someone else's care and attention and love and wisdom. So those are the relationships that we have with our elders and ancestors, our coaches and teachers, even our inspirational figures, our heroes and spiritual figures, anyone where we're going to get some encouragement to step into our potential, into our greatness, into our possibility. So if we're uplifted and inspired, then those relationships are important for us. We can't have too much imbalance. As we go through life, we're going to have at different moments in time, we may have more or less of certain types of relationships. When you're in college, there's probably not a lot of giving relationships in your life, but there's certainly a lot of receiving relationships. You're learning from your professors all day long. And then all night long, when you're not studying, you're hanging out with your friends. There's a lot of reciprocal relationships going on. Yeah. But then when that's over, most people partner up and they start families, and then they have young children. And my God, they're just giving all day long. And I'm just waiting for, if they get an hour a week of good quality reciprocal time with a friend or a peer, they're happy, right? And so as we go through phases in life, we're going to experience different quantities of each type of relationship. But given the full scope of life, you want to have a nice balanced blend of all. And that's what creates a well-rounded, rich life. Yes? Yeah. So the second half of your question was, how do we actually start applying this into architecture, right? How do we take this knowledge and then use it rather than it just being theory? Because now yes, we know it's true, but we don't know exactly how to do it. We know that we have these three categories of relationship, but how do you intentionally cultivate them? Yeah. And as an architect who's shaping space and saying, hey, I want to help people be their best, what can I do? What would a home look like if we created opportunities intentionally? We built it into the mold, into the bones of the house, of the design, so that you had opportunities for all three kinds of relationship in the home. And I want to take it even one step further and say, what would it look like if we had opportunity for all three kinds of relationship, not just in the home, but in every room of the home? Yeah. So that's really when we start to put it to work for us.
Huh. That's intriguing. That's now my mind's spinning. Woo! Yeah. Before we move forward, for those who are watching can see it's scrolling at the bottom of the screen, your website. But for those who are listening, where can they find you and what they can expect when they go to your website?
Oh, thanks, Paul. Yeah, it's conscioushomedesign.com. That's on there. That's my website, conscioushomedesign.com. When they get there, they can get a copy of my book, an audiobook, and the workbook. They can also have a consultation with me if they want to just pick my brain or find out if their plan for the future is feasible or realistic, or if they want some guidance. I also offer full service design and drawings and blueprints for people if they want to build a new home, whether they're upsizing or downsizing. And I do work all over the country, and I'll even do some consulting internationally if people are listening from abroad. So there's a contact me form, but I think the best thing is just to get started by checking out the book. It's a very easy read. You can consume it in about an hour. So wow. There's no jargon. I didn't want to talk a bunch of technical mumbo jumbo. It's just very accessible. Anyone can read it, whether you don't, even with no background in design, it's very accessible.
Yeah.
So thanks for,
You're welcome. You're welcome. And for those who are listening, definitely watch the show, because we got the book up here on the screen for those, because I'm a very visual person. So when someone says, I got a book, what's it look like?
Yeah.
Like, there's a big I don't know if it's a big trend yet, but there's a trend that's been going on. I think it's getting a little popular here in the Southeast about the tiny
Uh-huh.
home trend.
Sure.
Have you been working with any clients with the tiny home trend yet?
So I find that tiny homes they're very fun. They're very cute. They're very Instagrammable, right? People are building them. It's, you can build it yourself. There's plenty of tutorials online and you can have a lot of fun with that, but they're not, they're really not practical for long-term living.
Yeah.
They're just a little bit too small. And they're not really, people say they're portable, but they're not really portable either, because if you try to drive across country with it bouncing down the highway, it would rattle it apart, because the way we build homes and the materials we use and the fasteners we use are not the same way that we build roadworthy things. So I would say if you actually want something that's truly portable, just get an Airstream trailer and take that out. It's more aerodynamic. It's going to last longer. It'll hold its value and you don't have to build it. You just go ahead and buy it. So I think the tiny house movement was founded mostly by people who can't afford more than that. They're trying to buy themselves out of the rat race. And so they're trying to live a smaller footprint that's within their control. And so I have nothing but positive things to say. I don't want to say that tiny homes are no good. I just recognize some of the limitations and the impracticalities of it. With conscious home design, if you really wanted to satisfy all of the human needs, all of our higher needs, then you need a little bit more space than that, because we want to be able to dedicate certain zones or certain areas for different activities that you have. And so if your kitchen is also your office, is also your living room, then there's inherently friction in that, right? And so it's not that you can't live a good life there, but it just takes extra work to keep things tidy and to pack up one activity before you start the next, and that kind of experience. So
that makes me think of maybe far in the future, your conscious home design will be on the USS Enterprise.
Okay.
Where, you can just change your space like that. All right, holodeck, boom.
That's interesting.
Right?
Sure. That's right. Sure. That's right. Yeah. I love the way you think, Paul. That's so cool. In that scenario, all you need is one room. And it changes based on the holographic thing. And so the challenge there is the paraphernalia that you have to work with.
Yeah.
Like in the kitchen, you have pots and pans, but in Star Trek, they just push a button, you order whatever you want. So you don't actually have to prepare the meal unless you like the process of cooking food, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so that's pretty fun, actually, though. So that's really like a highly adaptable space. You can have one multi-purpose space that's good for multiple activities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's, this brings to mind a story about the Mona Lisa. It's the most famous painting in the world. And Leonardo da Vinci started painting it in the early 1500s. So it's over 500 years old now, this painting. But, as I was learning about it in art history, I realized that I learned that it took him more than a decade to finish that. He worked on it little by little over a period of many years. And this really, I paused to think about that and realized that this really exemplifies the truth of all human achievements and advancements. Without the ability to control our environment, we really can't build on yesterday's achievements. You could only do an activity that took a sunny afternoon, because as soon as the weather changed or hostile neighbors and tribes came or wild animals came, it would mess up everything you were doing. Yeah. So the ability to create architecture and create a space that's within your control allows you to build and rework and dedicate a lot of time and focused energy towards an endeavor. We all say it takes time and effort to become good at something. Practice makes perfect. I think it was Seth Godin who said 10,000 hours. If you put 10,000 hours into something, then you can achieve expert level status. Yeah. But what's missing from this sort of common sense formula of time and energy is it also takes space. You need to have a place to do the thing you're wanting to invest in, because without that, you're going to have, it's not that you can't succeed, it's that you're going to have to put more energy into overcoming the environmental limitations to succeed. It's like in the Tour de France when they're bicycling all over the countryside. They bunch up in a pack because the ones in front have to pedal harder to overcome the wind resistance.
Yeah.
And the ones behind, they can just coast because they call it drafting. They get sucked along by the airflow. And if you don't have dedicated space for your specific activities, then you're always in the front. You're always breaking the wind. You're always going against that wind resistance. In the Tour de France, they take turns. They'll say, hey, you take point for a while, and then they'll pedal for half an hour, and then they'll move back and let their teammates break the wind, and they'll go in a line like that. And conscious home design is about saying, hey, what activities are important to you? What do you want to do? What makes you shine and sparkle? What makes you step into your greatest possibility? Let's make sure that we dedicate some space for that somewhere in your home. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a large home. It just means that you have to be mindful about the way you use the space that you do have. Now, I think tiny homes are a little bit too small, like conscious home design, to do a full sort of everything that the ideal situation, you need about 700 square feet. Tiny homes are like 150 square feet. So they're just a little bit too small for that. What you can do is if you have a tiny home in a community, a little village of tiny homes, and then there's common spaces, some of the other spaces for human activity. If you have an office and a gym and a living room and hang out, you have common spaces that make up for the other gaps, then that can work just fine. But just living by yourself in a tiny home out in the middle of nowhere, it's going to be difficult to do everything you want to do.
Yeah. I always like to go back in time to studying architecture and some of our ancient cultures, and we can see how they dedicated certain living spaces within their architecture. Look at the hypogeum was it Turkey? Yeah, I think it was Turkey or Malta. Yeah, it was Malta. And that being dedicated specifically for sound resonance and meditation and possibly music. And how some of this old ancient architecture, you can see how they use this space for specific things and how we're carrying that out. And and that's how it's resonating with me with your approach, how we're dedicating certain spaces within our space for certain things. You said those three categories.
Sure, absolutely. And we do that. Civilizations in the past have dedicated space to their activities, and we do it today. We have hospitals, we have schools, we have spaces that are dedicated for certain endeavors, right? This is a fundamental truth that humans do this because we know that's the reality of having to deal with the planet we live on. Leonardo da Vinci was able to work on that painting a little bit at a time whenever he had inspiration or had a free moment between other projects he was working on, and then store it and then come back to it. And the ability to keep it there have his own art studio allowed him to do his work. So when we dedicate space to an activity, our chances of success in that activity are exponentially greater.
Yeah.
And so about going back to the three relationships, knowing that's the single biggest predictor of having an excellent human experience, right? Having an excellent life. What would it look like if we took all three relationships? What does that actually look like in the home? I promised listeners that we would give them some concrete action steps that they could do. I like to use as an example a room in the home that is not typically thought of as a relationship building room, and that is the bathroom.
Yeah.
And the bathroom is typically someplace where we go to have some privacy, right? To get away for a minute. If you're an introvert like I am, and you're at a party and you just need to catch your breath for a few minutes, or you're over at Thanksgiving with a bunch of people and they start talking about politics, you just want to run away, go to the bathroom. Or if you're a parent with young children and they're just hanging onto your leg 24/7, you just need 5 minutes to yourself. The bathroom is a place of salvation. But it's at the same time, it's also a very fertile ground for us to cultivate our feelings of connection and build on our relationships. Yeah. An example of giving relationship in your bathroom could be a plant. If you happen to have a window to the outside and get some daylight in there, it doesn't even have to be direct sun. You can choose plants that want indirect lighting and get them on the windowsill or on a little shelf near the window or even hanging from the top of the window. Then you've got the start of a nurturing relationship in your life. And it's very low maintenance. Once a week, take 3 steps from the sink over to the plant and give it a little water, prune off a dead leaf or whatever, and say hello to the plant. And it also has physiological calming effects. When we see green growing things, it calms the mind, the heart rate slows, our breath becomes more deep and even, and it lowers our blood pressure. And even if your bathroom is beautiful and well designed, when we look at architecture, it doesn't have the same physiological results that looking at something from nature does. And so it helps not only with the giving relationship, but it also helps physically to have those plants. And it really taking it, if you don't happen to have a window, then you can use a full spectrum light bulb and the plants will do fine under that. And with it, yeah. And so taking it one step further, what if you had a fish bowl? A little goldfish swimming around. So you come in the morning and sprinkle a little bit of food for the fish to eat, and hi fish, and you brush your teeth, and now there's life in your bathroom. Instead of it just being a dead utility space where you quickly run in, do your business, and get out, it's now a place where you have a moment of connection and you can be in the moment. And that's always helpful. Anyone who's practiced any kind of mindfulness activity, it's helpful. And so we're building it in. Here's a reminder to take a moment in the present and have a connection. So we're building success into our environment. And so examples of reciprocal relationships in the bathroom, we see this quite often in the master bedroom. They'll have 2 sinks, a double bowl sink, so you can brush your teeth side by side with someone. And if you want, if you have the lifestyle inclination and the space, then you can have an oversized tub that's big enough for 2, if that's romantic, or even just for efficiency. So you don't have to take turns. You can have a shower with 2 heads on it, so you can both take a shower at the same time. And so those are some opportunities for reciprocal relationships in the bathroom. And for receiving relationships, anyone can take a photograph or an image of someone that they love, an elder, a parent, or a spiritual figure, or one of their heroes or coaches, someone that they learn from, someone that they receive from. And put that up next to the mirror. And so when you're there washing your face and preparing to go out into your day in the morning, just take a few moments and look at that and say, you know what, there is love for me. There is someone who cares about my success, who cares about my well-being. And then what does that do to you to know that, to put that in the back of your mind, but also to keep it to keep reminding yourself so it's in the front of your mind? How do you show up? Do you show up just a little bit more confident that day, every day? And so it's these little 2% shifts can lead to massive dividends over time. It's like the butterfly effect. The mathematician said, do the flapping of a butterfly's wings in Brazil eventually set off a tornado in Texas? Yeah. The snowball effect. And so that's what we want to do, is look for little shifts that we can make, not just the bathroom. You can take that to every room in your house. Do an assessment. Hey, what kind of relationships is my house supporting? Is this room supporting? Is there an opportunity to build these things into it? Little 2% shifts compounded over years, decades, that can really have big results at the end of your happiness and satisfaction. And the data says so. The data actually tells us that people statistically live longer and happier lives when they have these strong connections, feeling of connection. Yeah. So that's a little something that anyone can do, even if you're just renting an apartment or in a roommate situation.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Yeah, like when it comes to apartments, like I know a colleague here in my town does a lot of gardening and does a lot of plant stuff and whatnot. And she teaches people in apartments how to care for, create a whole garden, even no matter how big your space is. And that's the thing too, is for people who do have apartments, they're probably sitting in the back of their mind going, I don't have enough space for this, or I don't have enough space for that. What are some of what's a good key point to get them to change their mind?
The plant doesn't have to be big. If it can fit on the windowsill, even a small one, get 2 or 3 smaller ones and have them there. Yeah.
Even cactuses, those little succulent plants.
Sure.
They're really tiny.
Sure. Yeah. Or get one that has some climbing ivy kind of thing, and you can put some push pins into the wall and string the branches up so that, the pot may be small, but it takes up a little bit of wall space there. You do the best you can with what you have. Yeah. Get a small plant and a small photo. And so if you have roommates, or I'm Catholic and my wife is Jewish, and if not everyone can agree on having the same photo in the bathroom, it's because you're sharing the bathroom, it's okay, fine. You can either agree that everyone chooses their own adventure. Hey, you have your picture, I'll have mine. Or just do something a little less obvious and just how about just a little affirmation, just a quote that you can glue to the top of put with tape on the top of your mirror, so that when you look at it, it's just, you can repeat that a few times mentally and say, okay, yes, I am, I am loved, I am respected, I am unique. I carry that with me into the world. World peace, let it begin with me. So whatever, some affirmation or some quote from an inspirational figure that is personally meaningful to you, start there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oof. So before we wrap up the show, again, where can people find you?
ConsciousHomeDesign.com.
That's easy. Heck yeah. And where can they find your book? Your website? Is it also on other places out there like Amazon?
Sure. Yeah. So the book is on my website at ConsciousHomeDesign.com. But of course, it's on online retailers, BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com. You can get it at your favorite place for sure. Yeah. When you get it on my website, though, you can also get the workbook, and the workbook is not available anywhere else. So the workbook is that I worked with a person who has a double master's degree in social work and psychology. They're a psychotherapist. They're a practicing therapist.
Yeah.
And read the book. And together we went through and said, okay, what do we really want to ask people, so that if we want everyone to get the principles applied to their specific situation. So what questions do we need to ask that are going to make sure that we're leaving no stone unturned? Like, the quality of your question determines the quality of your results and your outcomes. And if you don't know to ask a certain question, then you're leaving the results up to chance. Why do that? So we very clearly, so together we worked on it, and we put together these questions, and they're nice, simple, thoughtful exercises and worksheets that you can do. And then at the end of that, you have like crystal clarity about what a home needs to do for you. And so, oh, wow. Okay. Right. Now this, just knowing, hey, my relationships are so important, but having the math there, going through this will bring it to the forefront. And so you have clarity about it. And doing that exercise is very affirming. It's very powerful, because once you've identified these things systematically and intentionally, then it's, oh, now I have it. It's not just this vague knowing, but it's like right there in concrete, tangible forms. And now I know how to take action with it. And so that's the whole process. So the workbook is only available at ConsciousHomeDesign.com, but you can get a copy of the book online at any online retailer, or you can actually order it through your bookstore. Your local bookstore can certainly get a copy in for you if you prefer to not support the big conglomerates there.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Talor, before we go, what do you have as a takeaway for our audience? Some words of wisdom.
I want to let everyone know that there is support and encouragement for you, that I believe that we live in an intelligent, aware universe, and that intelligence is inherent, the nature is inherently loving. Even though it may seem like we live in a cold, chaotic universe, I've had plenty of examples myself to know that it's not the case, that the universe is aware of us as individuals and that there's love for us. And so I would say do whatever it takes to tune into that in little ways. There are reminders all around us, a flower, a friend. There's so many different reminders we get of that care for us, of that grace that's in our life. And yeah, I would say just chin up and keep your hope alive and step into your possibility, step into your greatness, whatever that looks like for you.
Heck yeah. Talor, I wish you the best, my friend.
Thanks. You too.
You got a good thing going. And it's something that everybody needs a healthy space around them, a healthy living space. And most people are blind to it. There's the unhealthy, which is like the hoarding, the hoarding culture, that just everything's clutter, and there's not enough space. And I think this would definitely help them if after seeking other help. But
yeah, sure. This is a huge subject.
Yeah.
There's so many doors to open, and we could do a whole episode on any one of these doors, right? It's a huge field, but we've scratched the surface and given people some food for thought. And I hope that with this new lens on seeing how this body, mind, environment connection can play to their benefit, that will inform whether they're just working with the space they have, or when it's time to move to a new space, it helps them evaluate their choices and more clearly make a selection. Hey, I got option A, option B, which one should I choose? Oh, conscious home design says this is what would be a better fit for me personally as an individual. Boom, take that one.
Yeah.
And
get the workbook. Go on the website, conscioushomedesign.com, and get the workbook too. Yes.
It's an essential life skill, just like knowing how to dress for the weather or prepare a well-balanced meal. You should know how your space, how your environment affects you so that you can design it, arrange it intentionally to support you.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Taylor, you have a wonderful, blessed day. And namaste, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks. You too. Namaste. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are very welcome. And keep us updated when the next book comes out or next thing comes out, whatever is happening. We're definitely here to help share it with the world.
Great. Thank you.
You are very welcome.
All right.
And thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. And until next week, we will see you.